Senator Gustavo Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fellow Commissioner. So the first thing I'll say is this, it's just a statement. It is obvious, as you made very clear earlier, that when the merger between docs and parole happened, that your responsibility is to provide them with all the resources they need, but you cannot speak on their behalf. I understand that perfectly. It is disappointing and unfortunate that the administration did not choose to have a representative of the parole board here. Obviously, there's a lot of things that you can't really answer, as you made clear before, on issues of policy, what happens to the parole board, et cetera. I'll just certainly add my voice to what many of my colleagues have said, that we need as many members of the parole board as possible. We can have statutorily up to 19. As many as we can would be best. So I speak to the administration now and say that we have, I am hopeful, because certainly there have been some resistance in the past from some of our Republican colleagues, but they are no longer running the show over in our House. So we would love to see a group of people coming to us as nominees, so that we can make sure that we can move them. So I would suggest, certainly this is, you can carry the message, but I'm sure they are listening.
Do that, Senator.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about solitary confinement, and actually, so define something for me. This is a term that I did not know about. What is keep lock? What does that refer to?
Keep lock is, I'll compare our system to the penal law. In penal law, the offense covers violations, misdemeanors, and felonies. So we have a three-tiered system. Tier 1 is like the equivalent of a violation. You did something wrong, but it's not part of your permanent record. A Tier 2 offense is like a misdemeanor. The punishment for a misdemeanor could be up to a year in jail, but you can't go to state prison. Similarly, with a Tier 2, you can get a keep lock sentence, but you can't get placed in SHU, you can't get a recommended loss of good time. So it's like the middle level of possible misconduct. And so one of the advantages of a keep lock sentence, like in a general confinement facility, a maximum security facility, is the individual doesn't get removed from the facility. He or she will serve their keep lock sentence.
So since my time is limited, I want to actually ask more specifics about what exactly it entails. So when you're saying keep lock, what exactly happens to the incarcerated person? Because if you have talking about a SHU, right, the person gets removed from their particular cell, right, and then placed in solitary confinement, someplace in the facility, but by themselves for a while.
Right.
What happens when a keep lock? What does that mean?
In keep lock, they remain in their cell for 23 hours a day, but they get 1 hour of outdoor recreation.
Is there anybody else with them in the cell?
I'm sorry?
Is there anybody else with them? Are they allowed interaction with other people while they're in their cell?
Oh, they're allowed to interact with people on their unit. They can have conversations. There's not that isolation issue.
Okay, and you're sure there's no, so that isn't that isolation issue?
It's considered restrictive housing as well,
Okay.
in a general sense of the term. That's where the ACA and everybody else is moving.
And do
All
you know,
of us are trying to make changes in this area. Every
how many
system in the
people
country.
how many people in docks are currently on any given day? How many people are on keep lock on a given day?
I can get you that number, Senator. I don't have it off the top of my head.
So I would really appreciate it if you could,
Sure,
if you could get us that number. It's the concern that many of us have is that maybe we're basically, since it's not categorized in the same way, since, as you are aware, and you can't comment on legislation, which I get, but there's many of us that have been very much pushing to get rid of solitary confinement and to change the way that works. And so we would be concerned that there's just a change in categorization of where people are kept. And last but not least, two years ago, I asked you about whether you remember a guy named Rick Ramish.
yes.
Rick Ramish. And
He's retired now.
Yes, and I asked you then, for those folks who do not know, this is a former Colorado Docks commissioner who slept overnight on a solitary confinement facility. And when I asked you that, and it was a great moment, I'm not going to deny that, but when I asked you whether you would be willing to do the same thing, whether you would be willing to stay overnight on a solitary confinement cell, your response was, Senator, it would be one of the best nights of sleep that I've had in my life. Ha ha ha. It's a good joke. It's a good one. I can't take it away from you. I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to ask you to take it seriously this time, considering that there's many of us who believe that this is torture and it has been, determined like that in other instances, certainly in war. My question to you is, would you be willing to do that? You only have 5 seconds, but
Yeah, of course, Senator. If this will advance the agenda, if we will sit down and end up with legislation that we both think is prudent and in the best interest of New Yorkers, I'd be willing to do that. And Senator, I wasn't in any way trying to diminish or poke humor at SHU. It's a very serious issue. I was making fun of myself because my phone rings at every hour of the night. And if I'm in a correctional facility, anywhere in a correctional facility, I can't have a cell phone, I can't have a pager, no electronic devices. So anywhere in a correctional facility, I'm removed from
Gotcha.
any of the pressures.
thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.